What a great way to kick off our 50th anniversary. Thanks again to Coach Lloyd. Round of applause. He's off to a ribbon cutting at Banner University Hospital, his next appearance for the day. So, 50 years. Wow. A lot has happened. A lot of amazing folks have come out of this program, and 50 years of this event, of the Symposium on Racing. So, I talked to one of our first-time attendees here, and we were just talking about the symposium, and she said, there are three things I didn't realize about the symposium: the networking, how educational it was for me and what I brought back home, and she said, the weather. So she said it's the trifecta, and she said, I'm going to come back every single year now that I've experienced it for the first time. So pretty cool that folks keep coming back. Our sponsors, I have to thank them. Without our sponsors, for those of you that put on these big events, without sponsors and exhibitors, it just the math doesn't work. So our platinum sponsors, Roberts Communication, First Technology, thank you so much for your ongoing support. You really make this thing happen. Our diamond sponsors, Global Tote, NYRA, the Daily Racing Forum, and all of the other sponsors. There's too many to name, but you guys come through for us every single year, and I know a lot of people in similar positions to mine have to beg for money and say, please help us, please help us. I will tell you, these sponsors and exhibitors call me and say, I want to come back for the next year. So I can't thank you enough for that. So 51 years ago, there was an idea from the industry, from people that similar to you guys, that said, we need a racing program, and where should we put this racing program? So it was guys like Frank Vessels and Jack Goodman and a lot of really smart folks that said, hey, we want a racing program, what do we do? So it was January 1974 where we had our first classes here at the University of Arizona. It was December of that year we had our first global symposium on racing, and we've never looked back. I mean, it's just been a march forward. So I want to thank the 100 RTIP alumni that returned to Tucson. They came back to support us this year. So folks, names that you know, like Todd Pletcher and Bob Baffert, and 98 names you may not know. You know, 98 names that do a lot of things to help support this industry behind the scenes, but may not have their name up in lights. So we all do this for a passion for the horse, a passion for racing. You know, and a lot of times I see some discord in the industry, and just always remember why we do this, right? We all should be rowing in the same direction. So. Sometimes it's frustrating from my standpoint. So, you know, we're like Switzerland a little bit, right? We're like neutral. I'm no longer operating a racetrack, and it could be disheartening. You know, it could be disheartening to see some of the infighting. So hopefully, from coming together, shaking hands, breaking bread together here at our event, hopefully the industry can work together more closely come December 12th when you guys leave here. Without further ado, let me introduce our keynote speaker, Oaklawn Park President Louis Cella, who came out to greet you all. So, Louis, if you want to come up here. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we get started, we have a pretty cool video. Selfishly, I brought myself, so if you could play that. If you can play that. No, we can.
This is my Oaklawn.
Good morning, and thank you, and Robert, thank you for that kind introduction and letting me kick off the 50th anniversary of the Global Symposium on Racing. What a true honor. As you can see with that short video clip, Oaklawn has changed quite a bit over the years. My name is Cella, president of Oaklawn Racing Casino Resort, or in racing circles simply as Oaklawn Park. We've been racing for over 120 years, and I'm very proud to say that I represent the fourth generation of the ownership of the professional sports franchise in America under the same common ownership. Oaklawn has participated in this program for many years. In fact, the former longtime director used to work at Oaklawn. And several graduates of this program have gone on to have great careers at Oaklawn, including our current racing secretary, Pat Pope, who has been with us for over 30 years. For students in the room considering a career in racing, it can be quite rewarding, but in my opinion, it depends on the jurisdiction, and it depends on whether management teams are willing to be creative and innovative while holding true our core business, horse racing. Over the years, our industry has experienced positives and negatives, and of late we've seen too many negatives. If you read everything and believe everything, you think racing's over, it's finished, it's done. But in some jurisdictions, racing is flourishing. Oaklawn is flourishing. For over a century, Oaklawn has faced as many or more challenges than any track in America. We've been through 2 world wars, numerous conflicts, the Spanish flu pandemic, more recessions and depressions that I can count, government shutdowns, horsemen boycotts, and of course the recent COVID nightmare. And yet we're doing better than ever before, and it begs the question, how? It's simple. When we get hit with challenges, we sit down and find a solution. We've been doing that for over 120 years. No handouts, no government intervention, no whining. We roll up our sleeves, partner with our racing commission and our horsemen, and we solve problems. Now, I know there's some jealousy out there. I've heard it from many racing executives. Oaklawn gets whatever it wants. Arkansas is not like any other state. Oaklawn's different. Well, guess what? Oaklawn is different. You see, in Arkansas, we work together. Oaklawn, our racing commission, our HBPA, our breeders' organizations. When we get hit with a challenge, we circle the wagons and we work together to overcome it. We check our egos at the door. And we sit down at the big table and reach consensus on what is best for all parties, because that is what is best for horse racing. Let me give you some examples. In the late 80s, early 90s, Oaklawn was hit with not one but 2 punches that nearly knocked us out. The first punch were surrounding states that created new racetracks with tax structures that were 6 times lower than Oaklawn's. When you have a disadvantage by 6 to the other guy, that leaves a lot less money for purses and for operations. And while we were staggered by that punch, we got hit with a second. Casinos. Casinos began popping up all around Arkansas, and by default, Oaklawn. Almost overnight, we were surrounded by more casinos in adjacent states than in any other state in the country. And guess what? We still are. We lost so much business that our statewide newspaper ran a feature headline, "Ghost Lawn." Unfortunately, it was true. We didn't have many fans in the stands. We didn't have many horses on the backside. And on top of that, a turf rider in Texas satirically wrote our obituary, quoting, "That quirky little track up in Arkansas has just about come to the end of its days. And like an old nag that has raced one too many, it was probably time to call it quits." And it was at that exact moment that we truly discovered that Oaklawn, our regulators, our horsemen, our breeders, even all of our fans and employees had something in common. We were all in the same boat. It became crystal clear that we were in the fight for our lives, and if we were going to have any chance of survival, it would take all of us working together. We'd have to be creative, we'd have to be innovative, we'd have to be united, and that is exactly what we did. To kick things off, we did something that no publicly traded company would possibly consider today. My family overpaid purses by millions of dollars. So to put that into context, at the exact moment we thought we were going out of business, we overpaid purses by millions. Our hope was that by overpaying purses, it would buy us enough time to develop and implement new ideas. Incidentally, that was maybe 30 years ago, and to this day, we've never asked for that overpayment back. Again, no public company would ever do that. With purses protected, at least for a while, we then developed and refined what would be the country's first full-card interstate simulcast with merged pool wagering. Full-card simulcasting had never been done before across state lines. We were not even sure if it could be done. But we worked with several telecom, satellite, and totalizator companies, and when we were certain that it could be done, we sat down with Mr. Dick Duchossois of Arlington Park, and on nothing more than a handshake, we launched what would become a new era of American racing. For us, it was a lifeline, creating a new revenue stream for purses. For the country, it became a national model that today represents over 90% of the national wagering on racing, which is remarkable. And what is also remarkable, even though it was not legislated or required, we structured it so that all of our partners, the state, our horsemen, our breeders, and ourselves, everyone would benefit on every wager placed, whether on our racers going out or a track from out of state coming in. Then an even bigger challenge, trying to fund some way to compete with more than 100 casinos surrounding us. The Arkansas Constitution limited us to parimutuel wagering on racing. No slots, no games of chance, just parimutuel wagering, nothing else. This required creative thinking. And after several years of trial and error, and after spending millions of dollars, we came up with something you've probably heard of: historical horse racing. Back then, we called it instant racing. It was a completely new and innovative way to present parimutuel wagering on racing. Basically, we collected about 200,000 previously run races from tracks all over the country. And we figured out a way to make them look, sound, and play like a slot machine. Would the idea work? We had no idea until we tried it. In fact, several racing executives, a few of which are in the audience today, told us it would never work. It was a stupid idea. It was a waste of time and money. We did not agree. We were awarded the patent, built the system, put it into play, and it worked. More customers, more handle, more employees, more purses, more taxes. It absolutely worked. And it supercharged our purse structure. And just like simulcasting, we made sure all of our racing partners benefited: our state, our horsemen, our breeders, and of course, ourselves. But this time we added an additional partner. You see, every time someone placed a wager on historical horse racing, part of that wager went right back to where the race was originally run. This was modeled after simulcast host track fees. Over time, it amounted to millions of dollars going back into our industry, all on previously run races. That had never been done before. This was a first, and unfortunately, that is no longer the case today. When other jurisdictions asked what was driving all the purse increases at Oaklawn, I received countless invitations to give demonstrations. But for a period of several years, I crisscrossed the country talking the amazing things this product could do for horse racing. At one time or another, I talked to every racetrack, racing commission, and horsemen's organization in the country, including interested parties in Canada, South America, Japan, and even Guam. And as I was doing this, something became abundantly clear. And it turned into one of the biggest disappointments in my career. I saw firsthand how pervasive and destructive greed within our industry can be. Oaklawn has always been an open book. When I gave my presentations, I laid out all the information about historical horse racing. I explained the margins are a lot thinner than traditional parimutuel wagering, but the volume's a lot higher. I explained how great it creates a bigger pie for everyone. Everyone would benefit. Sadly, in jurisdiction, after seeing how historical racing could help everyone in racing, special interests immediately started fighting over who was going to get a larger piece of the pie. And as a result, because everyone was fighting to get a larger piece, they wound up with nothing. And many of those same tracks are struggling today or are out of business. And to highlight just how myopic those decisions were, last year more money was wagered nationally on historical horse racing than on simulcast and traditional live racing combined. And guess what form of wagering is growing the fastest? Back to Oaklawn. Fast forward a few more years, in 2005, when our legislature saw what we had been able to do with historical horse racing, increase jobs, increase taxes, increase purses, it agreed to consider allowing legislation of what we called electronic games of skill. To help with the legislation, we and all of our racing partners went to the state capitol to lobby for passage. Our employees, our horsemen, breeders, jocks, all of us walking the halls, talking to legislators, and working together for the good of our sport. Even racing fans joined us because everyone would benefit. The legislation passed, our collective pie began to grow again. And just like simulcasting and just like with historical horse racing, with electronic games of skill, we made sure that everyone would benefit on every single wager. Our state, our horsemen, our breeders, and again ourselves. Several years later, we wanted to enhance the entertainment options for our fans, to make racing more fun for the casual fan, to encourage them to return more often. We lowered what it costs to make a show bet on track. We created what we call the show bet bonus. We cut the takeout on on-track show wagering from 17% to 10%. Though tracks have cut takeout rates on certain wagers, no track has done so and locked out computer-assisted wagering. We prohibit any outside pool manipulation. We didn't want our on-track customers being taken advantage of by offshore computer-assisted wagering or other wise guys surreptitiously jumping into our pools. To reduce the takeout on show bets, we and our horsemen had to give something up for our fans. We had to compromise. We figured if it worked, our fans would have more fun, enjoy racing more, visit the track more often. And today, incredibly, it represents over 20% of all of our on-track wagering. And incidentally, the fans talking about it the most, younger fans, new fans, the younger generation. They're at the track, they're cashing tickets, they're having fun. We've made racing fun again. And that teed up to, I believe, history will record as the most important development of all. I doubt anyone in this room has ever heard this story. A few years ago, a Native American tribe approached us about possibility of a constitutional amendment to approve casinos in Arkansas, including one at Oaklawn. They were hoping for us not to fight them. Ordinarily, you would. Who wants more competition? But we put a unique spin on it. We saw this as an opportunity to further protect and enhance racing in our state. So we let it be known we would not oppose their constitutional amendment, provided it contained unique provisions to support horse racing and breeders in Arkansas. Every time someone makes a bet at any of the casinos in Arkansas, a small portion of that bet must go straight to a special fund to increase purses and breeders' awards. Even as I'm standing here today talking to you, there are people back in Arkansas playing slot machines, and every time they put a quarter in and pull the handle, our purses and breeders' awards increase a little bit. And here's the kicker to that. We did not want a penny of that. 100% of that special fund goes to horsemen and breeders. And we're doing this for our sport. We're doing this for our racing partners, the trainers, the jockeys, the hot walkers. We're doing this for our fans. If it helps grow the sport of racing in Arkansas, Oaklawn's share will grow too. This is how you grow the proverbial pie for everyone to get a larger piece. There's one more example of our commitment to a full partnership to our horsemen and growing racing. Like everyone else in America, we were hit with COVID in 2020, right in the middle of our racing season. And like other businesses, we had to close too. But unlike other businesses, we had 1,500 horses on the backside, 1,000 people taking care of them every single day. So I called our governor, Asa Hutchinson, and I explained to him that I understood the reasons why he shut us down, but I also explained that horses and horsemen were stranded. There was no place for them to go. There was no money coming in to pay for feed or payroll or vet bills. I asked our governor if he would allow us to continue to race and distribute purse money, providing we stayed completely closed to fans and merely simulcast our races. I explained that by doing this, the owners and horsemen would have a lifeline. They could hold on. They could pay their help and their vet and their feed bills. Our governor agreed. So we ran the second half of the 2020 meet without a single fan in our grandstand. And when you're used to tens of thousands of fans cheering on their horses, it was eerily quiet. So what's the result of all these things that I've been talking about? Today, Oaklawn and our racing partners have never been doing better. Our purses this past season, was almost $1 million a day, and the current season, which just opened last week, will be about the same. And in fact, we offer the highest winter-spring purse distribution in the nation, with more customers coming through our doors than ever before. Even though we're in a town of just 35,000 people, it's not uncommon to have 30, 50, or 65,000 or more people attend the races for a big Saturday. This past weekend, we raced just Friday and Saturday to kick off our 121st season. We had over 30,000 people. So yes, racing in Arkansas is growing, but we need to put that into context to appreciate our growth. In the last 20 years, national handle on racing has remained flat or declined. During that same period, Oaklawn's handle has doubled. Over the last 20 years, national purses have not grown. When adjusted for inflation, Oaklawn's purses have increased 6 times. This past season, we had 11 trainers and 18 jockeys win over $1 million in purse earnings. And both the leading trainer and leading jockey both won over $6 million each. Before we started instant racing in 2000, our gaming win was 0. Last year, it was nearly $200 million. If Oaklawn can resurrect like the Phoenix in a small state and a small population base, in the middle of the Bible Belt, surrounded by more casinos than in any other state in the country, I am certain others can too. Despite a declining horse population, we have a 2-to-1 waiting list to get stalls. We average nearly 9.5 horses per start over our entire 60-plus day season. Of the 110 trainers coming to Oaklawn this year, 20 are new outfits to Oaklawn. We are growing horse racing. We attract horses that go on to win the Triple Crown and other top races in the country. We make racing fun for both the front side and the back side. We make it entertaining. Fans want to come to races. And if we can do it in a small state, with a small population base in the middle of the Bible Belt, surrounded by more casinos than any other state in the country, well, I must believe it is possible for others to do the same. But you and your racing partners must be willing to check individual agendas at the door, think outside the box, be willing to try new things, and above all else, put racing first. And for the students in the room, I'm saying when you see that happen in a particular jurisdiction, when you see everyone working together by putting racing first, that's where you want to work, because that's where racing will be the brightest. Before I sign off, I was asked to comment on HISA. People ask me all the time if I'm for it or against it. It's rather simple. It doesn't matter. It's the law. So embrace it and contribute to it and make it great for our industry. We and our horsemen have been involved with it from its infancy, trying to make it as good as it can be, not just for Oaklawn, but for the entire industry. In many instances, we go beyond the HISA HIWU mandates. We created a whistleblower program 6 years ago. We created an integrity program before integrity programs were a thing, whereby a team can go anywhere, the front side, the back side, even a neighboring farm, to conduct investigations. And we are keenly sensitive to equine injuries and worse. Like every track, we do everything to reduce injuries. We do everything. We are the only track that completely removes the cushion every year, so we can retest it, remix it, replenish it, and put it down. And while the cushion is up, we get to inspect the entire base. And we do this every year, and we've been doing this for nearly a decade. But here's the reality. It's not just at Oaklawn, but it's at all the tracks. Track surfaces have never been better maintained. Horses have never carried less weight. Horses have never raced less often. Horses have never been given better and more medical oversight. Horses have never been tested more often, and going so far to test in picograms. And this suggests to me that if we're going to make significant progress from here on out, we're going to need a healthier and hardier horse to start with. Future safety improvements, in my opinion, are going to have to start in the breeding shed. And we should focus on what happens to that horse in the first year or two of life. If we start with that, we might be able to figure out what factors are making these wondrous animals so fragile. You can have the safest racing track surface in the world, but if you put a horse on it that's fragile to start with, you're going to have problems. I want to thank Robert Hartman and the RTIP for inviting me here today, and thank you for indulging me in my sometimes rant regarding our industry. But that's why we're successful at Oaklawn. We question the status quo, and we're not afraid to do so. But we also encourage discussion and consensus. I would like to end this morning on a positive note. For the students in the room, Oaklawn's hiring. We'd like to think that we are a bright star in the constellation of our sport, and we truly believe the future is bright. I would encourage any of you who have not been to Oaklawn in a while, come check us out. Our 121st racing season just started. and we end on the first Saturday in May. And if you do come visit, be sure you book a room in our Forbes-rated hotel and get your room trackside, and you will have a view of training in racing unmatched anywhere in the world. If you want to relax, treat yourself to our Astral Spa, one of the few Forbes 4-star rated spas in America. And during a great day of racing, where you'll see some of the finest thoroughbreds in the country, enjoy Oaklawn's culinary options for all tastes, culminating with a meal in one of our best in Arkansas fine dining restaurants before making your way to our smoke-free casino. As you can tell, I'm quite proud of what Oaklawn has become, because I think Oaklawn represents what racing can be and what racing should be for our industry to survive, and we would love for you to come visit. Thank you very much.
Louis, you make your father very proud, I'm sure, with him looking down on us, how you've continued on the legacy at Oaklawn. Congratulations. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. That deserves a round of applause, I think.